Thank you for joining me today on the Who God Says podcast. I am your host and Kingdom Ambassador, Ty-Shaun-Dra. Hi, hi, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Today we have a very special guest. It has been a long time coming. Oh my God, I am excited. So he is a youth minister, journalist, teacher, a Native American leader, and a Christian author, Mr. Calvin Cassady. Oh my God, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God. So I wanted to ask you about your book, Bridging the Gap. Um, I was reading about it and I was like, oh my God. Whew. But I do want to ask you, how long have you been a Christian? And was this religion normal in your household or your culture growing up?
Yes, I've been a Christian all my life. I mean, I probably baptized at 2 or 3, and always has been. We switched denominations when I got married, but it's all Christianity.
Awesome. That's great. I don't think that a lot of people know that Native Americans are they have Christian Native Americans. So I don't think that it's something that a lot of people talk about.
Well, a lot of people don't from both
Mhm.
sides of the fence. Um, that's an interesting thing. There's some stories because I spent. I mean, I was born Native American, but I
Mhm.
didn't get really into the uh, tribal customs and things until much later, and then for about 8 years I was part of the tribal government. But that was
Mm.
really frustrating because uh, they Native people, even if they go to church or even if they're Christians, and I know a lot of them that are,
Yeah.
they will tell you that they believe in the cultural religion,
Mhm.
and if you push them too much, they'll kind of try to push you out. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of a frustrating time in my life. But when I look back, I think, you do what you can while you have the chance. And when I look back, it wasn't such a bad deal. Uh, uh, and I felt like, I represented Christianity well, and they know where I stand. And even if they're a little shy about where they stand, that's that's something that they're going to have to work out on their own.
Yep. They got an answer for that. I applaud you for standing on it. Because a lot of times people will get intimidated, especially when their environment and that atmosphere is giving you some pushback. People will get intimidated, but I applaud you for standing on that.
Well, there was some tense moments, but you know, for those that are solid believers, we managed to get through, and those that weren't, some of the things that we prayed for and experienced was making them understand that it's just more than just words, and
Yes.
uh, because I mean, really and truly, there were some times where if it hadn't been for prayer, we would have had some situations that
Oh
didn't
yes.
work out so well.
Oh yes. Oh, don't I know it? Oh my gosh. So on your journey to writing this book. Tell us about your book. What led up to writing the book Bridging the Gap, a spiritual journey to heaven and back? What led up to that?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to tell you about the title.
Okay.
My what why I looked at the title was that I was bridging the gap between heaven and earth.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people choose a book by its cover, unfortunately.
Yes.
And they couldn't figure that part out, especially when I had a picture of a bridge on the front of it. But that was a total intent, and once people figure that part of it out, it all makes sense. But when I was a young man, I was involved in a very serious car crash, which led to a I use near death experience because people will listen to you when you say that. If you
Yeah.
say God swooped me up and carted me off to heaven, they think, well, maybe we need to sweep you up and cart you off somewhere else.
Yes.
But then when people get to know me, they completely understand.
Yeah.
But anyway, during this time, and I was on a day trip with some buddies of mine, and we had one of those bang up crashes where
Mhm.
the car burst into flame, and and we all survived. But that's the kind of a crash that you wonder
Yeah.
how anybody survived,
Right.
uh, because. But at any rate, following that um, experience, I had an encounter with who I refer to as my guardian angels because they pulled me out of this fiery hell and managed to save my life, or at
Mm.
least for the time being. And I remember one of them said, as they were two gentlemen. One was a country preacher, and
Mhm.
one was a electric, utility worker that had
Mhm.
been trained in trauma level first
Wow.
aid, and they happened to be the utility man picked the preacher up because he was needed a ride from one place to another. Now you got to understand that all has a place to make this
It
play out.
does. It
Um,
does.
but at any rate, one of them said as he tucked me in, wrapped in t-shirts off their own back because that that was the main cause was I was bleeding out, and but and then they disappeared. I mean, before the ambulance came, before the tow truck came, before the highway patrol came, they were gone. And it's a mystery to those folks today how we managed to escape that burning car.
Wow.
And but anyway, before the gentleman that was a preacher left, both of them prayed with me, and they said, "This should get you where you need to go."
Mm.
And of course, struggling to be able to breathe at the time, that didn't make as much sense as it does now. On the way to the hospital, my breathing got to be shallow, and eventually,
Mhm.
I lost consciousness and uh, wasn't breathing, and
Wow.
for all practical purposes, I had died. But they kept working, and we went to the hospital, and it all came back. But there's a long intermission between when I went out and when I came back, and that's the
Yeah.
part that's the most important part in the book. And some people are a little disappointed because that whole thing it takes pretty much all in one chapter because
Mm.
it was a big, big deal. But the biggest deal was how it set me up for the rest of my life. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, uh, like I said, the guardian angels got me where I needed to be, and somewhere on that long ride to the hospital, I left my physical body. My soul traveled to above sin,
Mm.
above Satan. And during that time, we went from confusion and chaos to complete and total peace. And
Wow.
people always talk about that light. Well, there was a light, and it was not only the brightness of the light, but the intensity of the warmth.
Wow.
Because when I left this place we called Earth, it was a cool, corrupt situation that we left behind. And I hate to say that, but that's just the way it is. We have to
Yeah.
live with that every day. And before that time, I didn't realize that. But at any rate, we passed through that. I saw Satan drop off because he couldn't hold on any longer, and him and all my sins were gone. And
Wow.
then, as you rise with the intensity of that, you become closer to the light, but you become closer to a warm, cozy, this is kind of where I want to be situation. And the next thing I know, and this is a metaphor I used in the book, was a huge curtain, like you're at a movie theater. A huge
Mhm.
curtain opens up, and there you see this view of heaven. And for me, that was this peaceful, the peace that passeth understanding type photo in my mind. It wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily streets of gold or angels singing, that it was just a one-on-one with the Lord, which I didn't see, but I heard, and he directed me, and and we enjoyed the beauty of his creation in heaven as on earth. And but there was a little give and take, and my mission, and I say I use the word compact because that's a little more powerful than just a promise.
Mhm.
Was to return, to go back, and and you use this as an example to work with people that need help. Use this experience as um, something that they can relate to. Um, Use this experience as you may not have this experience, but this is an example of how God really is there, and heaven
Yeah.
is a real place, and
Right.
it's all available for you. And no, I'm not here to tell you that I'm better than you, or that God looks at me better than He does at you. He just sent me to help you. And then, just quickly I arrived, I was headed back, and just a
Wow.
second after I left, this piece began to crumble away a little bit. And then at that point, I knew that I was going to have to go through all of the chaos and
Mm.
corruption to get back to where I started. And that's when it really began to bug me. I mean, that's when I really began to see that's the mission that I was going to have to tackle. It was not near as calm and peaceful as it seemed like. There was all these
Mhm.
things working around you all the time, and but my foremost attention was to young people, because I just starting my senior year of college, and I
Wow.
would be teaching school the next year. So I tell you this now because it made little sense then. I mean, well, because in the classroom, it seemed like I always gravitated to the children that had problems, um,
Mhm.
and I just knew, and I didn't even think about it. It's just
Yep.
the way it was, and sometimes things would happen, new situations. I really didn't know what to do, but through
Right.
prayer, I would end up in somebody's living room, not for sure why I got there or how I got there or what I was supposed to be doing there, but God put those words in my mouth to calm some situations. Uh, we had several, and I think I used 15 examples in the book. And I could have wrote a
Mhm.
whole book about lots
Wow.
more, but those were just the ones that came to me uh, when I was writing. But now I say that because I retired from teaching. It's been 10, almost 20 years now. And,
Happy retirement.
but you retire and you hang out at home. And then I did a stint with the Indian tribes. But, that ability to identify people is
Mm.
still there. And I never really tried to plug into it as an adult dealing with an adult, because that was a pretty ominous thing to think about.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, people. I had a situation when I went through the front doors of the church one day, and a guy was coming through the side door, and he just stopped. And I said, "What's the matter, Wayne?" And he goes, "Did you know you're glowing?" I said, and he was kind of pulling my leg a little bit, but he said, "No," he said, "It was like you were surrounded by light." And
Mm.
to me, that was, yeah, just go, move on, no problem. But it was there, and
Yeah.
I knew I could feel it. And
Yep.
so you walk into church and you see people that need help,
Yeah.
and some of the time they don't want anybody to know. So and that's another thing you don't want to do. You don't want to go say, I can see who in you, and I can see in here who of you are sinners and who of you aren't, because that's
Ooh.
not exactly the same. So you got to be careful about how you choose things and about how you approach people, because judgment is the very last thing that
Mhm.
that you want to have anybody relating
Yeah.
back to you. But uh, the things I learned working with children are just as effective as working with adults. And of
Yeah.
course, right at the beginning of my retirement, COVID hit.
Oh.
And so all the people that you might be able to help were all, they were just gone. I mean, they were
Yeah.
locked in their houses and they couldn't come out and we couldn't go to church. And people were dying all around you that were your friends, and you just didn't know what to do. So
Yeah.
that was a long, sad time,
Yes.
uh, and it seemed like,
Draining.
yeah, seemed like prayer wasn't doing the job for you. You just you couldn't see,
Mhm.
but you could. I mean,
Yeah.
again, you just have to. It's another short story. After our house was blown away by a tornado in '03, and that was another time, and I felt God's presence, and it felt so good because told my wife we spent the night. We came back to our house that was destroyed, and some friends of ours said, "Oh, you can just come spend the night with us, and we'll figure this all out." And you're
Yeah.
in a total state of shock,
Yeah.
and you really, I mean, it's times like that that for just a second, you might think, "God, where are you? What's the deal here?"
Right.
But we
Yeah.
got settled in with our friends that night, and before I closed my eyes, I told my wife, I said, this is the first time, I said, I can honestly say that we are homeless and we don't even have a job. I said, we're homeless and unemployed. How's that? But I said, I'm not worried because
Praise God.
it's all gonna be fine. The next morning we got back to where the house had been. They were total strangers from not even from the state who had
Wow.
arrived to help pick up. And I had relatives in the area, and it was just amazing. But those are the kinds of things that reaffirm me, and I can use those kinds of things to help other people be reaffirmed. But I'm
Yeah.
telling you, COVID was still a tough, 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 tough time. And there's a lot of people that aren't even they're not even ready to get over it yet.
Yeah.
And that's hard because, I know I've got a couple of families that uh, and one of them lost the head of the household, uh, and and this his wife is just she's just like I said, she's not ready yet. She's not
Yeah.
ready to say he's gone and I got to move on, but he's not really gone. And she's a good
Right.
Christian person, and you just see him suffering, and you're thinking, I mean, it just so happens that she cuts my hair, and so periodically we spend time. My wife and I spend time with her because she's a really good friend, and she knows that I'm liable to just burst into song or into a lecture or something. But I try to respect her rights,
Yeah.
and and sometimes she brings it up and I don't. But she's still suffering, and I know a
Yes.
few others that are suffering, but they're getting on with their life in bits and pieces. But
Yeah.
that kind of tragedy. That was far worse than the tornado or
Oh
things
my
like that,
God.
uh, because those things have happened before, and you build up a amount of experience and wisdom to help people, because
Yeah.
even though it's tough, uh, people can see their way out of that. Whereas with COVID, I think some people just don't think there is a way out. And I really,
Yeah.
really, I pray for them because God has a plan for them that doesn't include suffering for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and they just have to be open to receive that because I know it was hard. It was hard for a lot of people during COVID. I didn't experience it like I didn't get COVID, but I saw a lot of people around me who got COVID and the toll it took and then the people that were dying and just a whole bunch of things. And yeah, you have to stay in prayer. It did look like it was the end of the world, and it's like, God, what is going on? But God has this way of giving you this peace about things. He gives you this peace, a peace that passes all understanding. And things can be happening around you and you just have this peace. And if you hold on to that peace, you'll be able to see your way out of that tunnel. Yeah.
Hi everyone! Join the Kingdom Fanatics community. Get exclusive content, green room access with our guests, and more. Visit our website at whogodsays.com. Like and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate your love and support. To find all information on joining our community, being a guest on the show, donating on our PayPal donation page, and more, visit us at whogodsays.com. Now back to the show.
That's true, but COVID destroyed that peace so much that people are having a hard time getting back to it. And this is the part that I try with people that I feel like are having those issues to, you don't want to say, what I want to say is get over it. God still loves you, and so let's just move on. But you don't because
Yeah.
they're not ready to hear
Yes.
that yet. And even though peace surrounds them, they can't find it. And until they can, you know, uh, zero in on some of these things, uh, they just continue to be the way they are. And uh, so that's been a tough one. Uh,
Yeah.
but that during that time I had the way I got through COVID was I had a podcast called Intermission, and the whole purpose was to report how the time between the way it was and the way it's going to be. That was the
Mhm.
intermission, and uh, and this was I started out being 3 times a week because I just didn't have anything else to do. Then
Yeah.
as COVID began to open up a little bit, and I had to go back to work, went down to 2, and then once a week. And then when we fully came out of COVID, um, I began promoting the book again, and I just didn't have time to do it. But that was a
Yeah.
very, very relaxing, encouraging for me, and hopefully encouraging for those people that listen. But we talked. I mean, we had to talk about graduation because graduations have been postponed.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
we talk
Yeah.
about
So true.
just what to do with your kids to keep it from driving you crazy because
Oh,
I
yes.
taught school, and schools had all been closed. So the parents are supposed to be taking care of their kids and educating their kids, even though they had no clue what to do. But
No clue
it
and
was
no
just all kinds
proof.
of things that came up, and I've got those are all recorded. And sometimes I go back and listen to those and think, that was just not a COVID thing. That's just a thing that's
Yeah.
going on before COVID, and it's going to
It's a
go on
life
after
thing.
COVID.
Yep.
It just gave us a chance to explore ourselves and explore possibilities, and so that was another project.
Well, I want to ask you, do you think, like looking back before the car accident, do you think that God had been trying to get your attention about something or maybe about your mission before the car accident?
I think maybe so. I was
Mhm.
I went to church and I had, was in youth group and all these kind of things. But I think before I went into the classroom, and I was doing church work too, working with young people at church. And in retrospect, I think that was just you know, here you are, and I made you. Don't don't let me down. You got a
Mm,
big opportunity in front of you,
yeah.
and you've got my blessing, and you know that I'm going to help you. So take it from here and make me proud. Kind of like a father would do.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where that line came from, but that's how God works.
Yeah.
Uh, he puts the words in your mouth sometimes, and
Yeah.
that's just the way I roll.
Oh my gosh. Since you've had that experience, um, and you did go on to become a teacher and everything, um, what do you think? Did that experience kind of directly affect you teaching young people, like right after college?
Oh yeah, I mean we're talking about the accident happened in May of my junior year, and by the next May I had already student taught, and it
Mm,
went. I remember I had plastic surgery to do to do some work on my head because it had been stitched so many times that it was
wow.
looking pretty rough.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was just before I went to student teach. So a friend of mine knew a wig maker that made me a wig that looked a lot like my real hair, which I wore for a little while. But after a while, I ditched it and thought, if people ask me about this, that's an open door. That's
Yes.
open door for you to tell them. And in the public schools, you got to be careful about what you say. But I said it anyway,
Yeah.
and kids opened their eyes, and this is at a time when parents would go home and they tell their kids would go home and they tell their parents, and instead of the parents calling the school board and saying you need to fire this person, they would
Oh,
say,
wow.
"Oh, is there any way that I can, we'd really like to come visit with you,
Yeah.
uh, and we'd like to hear too," and uh, that was when I was student teaching. It turns out the next year I went back to that same school and I got a job. And I was in that same school district for 30 years.
Praise
And
God.
there wasn't a class that I had in those 30 years, even some classes that I substituted in on a long-term basis, that I didn't relate my story. And uh, and it every time it was received in a positive way. And uh,
Yeah.
because it gives people hope. And one of the biggest things that go wrong in the classroom is kids give up because they don't know who to believe in.
Yeah.
And I'm not calling anybody a bad parent because parenting is so much harder than it was when I was a parent, and I was a teacher for 5 years before I was a parent.
Yeah.
I was 20 just turned 21, and I had people at first conference after I'd been teaching a total of 2.5 months
Mm.
come in and say to me, "What am I going to do? How am I going to do this?" And you know what? I just said a prayer and let go. And fortunately, the words that came out of my mouth were the ones that should have. But I was thinking, why are you asking me? I haven't had any kids, and I'm barely old enough to be here. So, but I ran into one of those boys, and my wife took some stuff, some things to get sharpened at the grinder place, and she took the stuff in, and she came back out with this guy. And he said, "You probably don't remember me." And he says, "I
Mm.
was in your first class." And he told me his name, and I did remember him. But, that's when you think those little seeds you planted
Yep.
grow up.
Yes.
Right
Yes. That
now,
is so impactful and so powerful when God allows you to see that full circle moment, when you can actually be face to face with a person that you impact and you just never knew. That is
yeah,
so beautiful to me.
Facebook
Yeah.
has been so good in that regard because a lot of times I can keep track of. and just know where they live and how their families are, and I try not to get in their life too much, but I do want them to know that I'm proud of them and that
Yeah.
appreciate them sharing their family. Right now, before we went on today, I'm working with. We're getting ready to hire a new minister at our church, and we're trying to get everything in ship shape order for him or her, and so we're kind of redoing the youth ministry situation, and that's what I was doing before I came on today, was working on goals, and so that's come full circle too.
Yeah.
In 70, I think my first uh, endeavor with Christian ministry was probably 1974,
Ooh.
and
Seasoned. Not old,
uh,
but seasoned.
so we've come full circle again. And now I'm telling them, I said, I don't want to teach, and I don't want to be in charge, but I want to be the person that if you're having a problem, you come see me, because by golly, we can find out how to make this work. And
Yes.
uh, so I guess my position's a little different, because back then, at age 22 or 23, uh, you just pray every morning, get through the day, and take care
Yes.
of those that need your help, and take care of things at home. And but I look back, and it's been a good life, and but this is an opportunity to stretch it a little longer and have a purpose, and
Yep.
uh, just visiting with you. And I hope your listeners are enjoying this. Uh, things like that. That gives you a reason at 73 to get up and say, "What's today gonna bring?"
Right. God
Uh,
is able.
yep,
He is
that's true.
able. Get on up. Got things to do, Mr. Cassidy. We got things to do today.
That's right. And my wife's she's every bit as energetic as I am. Uh, I deal with the Word of God. She deals with God's creation. She works with
Mm,
kids and nature and doing activities outdoors, and she interprets God in that direction. So we're a pretty darn
that
good
is
couple, and we've been
awesome.
together going on 52 years. And people say, "How do you do it?" Well, we just
Oh,
just keep on, just keep oning, and support
yeah.
each other and
Oh
love
my
each
God.
other.
I pray I could have 53 years. Oh my God. That is amazing. I'm not married. I want to be married, but I'm just in my season where I'm sitting back and letting God bring who He is preparing for me while He's preparing me for Him. Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
Good attitude.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Did you have any other experiences after the car accident that were kind of not as intense, but any of those
Well,
divine experiences?
they just, there was one that I can think of
Hmm.
that wasn't too long ago. And it's not as dramatic on paper, but it was dramatic to me. I had a really bad fall at church. And I got to tell this whole story because it's interesting. We leave the church and we go through this hallway to get
Hmm.
to the parish house or the community center. And it's called the Hall of the Apostles, because we've got a stained glass window in that hall for every one of the apostles.
Oh.
Well, I got to John, and my feet went out from under me, and I just fell, and I hit my
Mm.
head. And this is not that well. You probably see that scar if you look. Um, Fell and hit the edge of a marble casing, and I
Mm.
mean, I thought I was going to bleed to death then too. But that was another one of those experiences. And my wife said when we got home after the trip to the emergency room and stitches and all kinds of stuff, he said, "I do not." She says, "I just don't understand." She goes, "Your daughter and your grandson and we sat with you in that emergency room." And she says, "I don't think you've blinked an eye when they were doing the cleaning you up and doing the stitches and everything." She goes, "I just don't understand." And I said, "Well," I said, and the sermon that day had been on how God works in our lives outside of church. You know,
Yeah.
he's everywhere. And I said, well, it's just like whenever I hit that wall, Jesus picked me up, because there was a lady that picked me up and set me down in a chair. And then Jesus acted through this man who managed to get the bleeding stopped, and through this man that
Yep.
went to get the car so we could go to the hospital. And I said the name of the hospital was Mercy. So it was just, I mean, when I got conscious again and was thinking, I did a little piece on it, and it came out real well. And
Yes.
I sent it to the church, sent it to the doctor, because well, he insisted on giving me a tetanus shot, and I said, but doc, I fell in the hall of the apostles and it was blessed marble. I don't need a tetanus shot. He goes, that's a good story, but you're getting a tetanus shot. But that was just one case that's been lately. But
I
every you know all the time, little things happened. And like the experience with the guy that came through the door and saw that I was surrounded by light, which was probably coming from the outdoors, but that's not the way he interpreted it, you
right.
know. And
Right.
I was just feeling that way. We just had a meeting with the bishop, and we talked about some of these things, um, and she was wholly in agreement that while it might seem drastic to other people, he
Yeah.
says, the effect it has on you. And she said, I've had those experiences too, uh, uh, set you up to be a helper, uh,
Yep.
to help people heal, help people calm down. Um, so when I look back, like I said, I've had a good life. And I look at opportunities. I mean, this opportunity to get back in the business of working with church school age kids, to me, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm God and put that idea on my pastor's mind, and he just passed it on to me. And you just, at the end of the day, you just got to take account of what a
Yeah.
wonderful day it's been, even if it's
Yeah.
hadn't been, because
Yeah.
they're not all good.
Yeah, definitely. But he's always there. I love how you looked at that whole situation. You fell, Jesus picked you up. There was a lady that picked you up and set you in a chair, and you like, Jesus worked through her. That was amazing. It's amazing. A lot of people don't think like that. They go through a lot of things in their lives and they say, well, why am I going through this? Why is this happening? You know, when is this storm going to be over? But don't look at where did you see God in that storm? Where did you see God in that fall? Where did you see God in that trauma? They don't look at it like that. I'm glad that I'm grateful that you were able to speak that, because now a lot of people have that perception of it. Jesus worked through this lady to pick you up off the floor, put you in a chair. They worked through the doctors to make sure you won't bleed out to death. I love that. I love that optimism. I love that perspective of it, because not a lot of people would sit and think about it that way. They would just wallow in the things that are happening
Well,
and
they
not
worry
focus
is
on
what they
life.
do.
Yeah,
They
they
worry
worry.
about it. But see,
Yep.
through my prior experience,
Hmm.
I've had several surgeries lately, and the last one was it was like 2 months ago. Monday, this last Monday, I had back surgery, which was a pretty big undertaking. Um, but even through that, uh, you know, my wife always said, she goes, I don't understand how you can be so calm. And she said, because I've never seen you really get, uh, into stuff. I had some cancer problems, 5 or 6 years ago. And,
Yeah.
uh, we went to the cancer doctor, and he said, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what your choice is. And my answer to him was, when can we do? How long do I have to wait?
Right.
And he goes, I don't hear that from people most of the time. Most of the time they go, can we have a couple of months to think about it? And maybe that couple of
Wow.
months is the difference between life and death. But that, uh, I go to therapy and, I've been to therapy. I think I've had every therapist at our therapy center. Uh, but I went, started back therapy just, Tuesday, this last, uh, well, not Tuesday, Monday. And, the, had a new therapist, one I've never had before. And this other one came up and says, well, do you know Calvin? And she goes, no, I don't believe, we've ever, uh, worked together. She goes, well, I just want to tell you that he's the one of the good ones, and he's
Yeah.
going to do what you tell him, and he's going
Oh,
to be here every time. And he might even help some of the people that you're working with because he's just got the right attitude. And I really appreciated that. But that's the way I feel when you go into a therapy center and you've got maybe 10 people doing therapy all at the same time, and none of them are at peace.
yeah.
They're all anticipating something that's going to be very bad,
Yep.
and it it
Yep.
it it's you know maybe not the most pleasant thing, but it's not near as bad as what they're making it out to be.
Right.
And if you could just get them to shift gears a little bit, they would. They wouldn't. I'm not saying it's fun, but I told the therapist when I went in. And he goes, well, how you doing today? And I said, this is probably going to sound funny to you. But I said, when I walk into this therapy room, and I've been in here a lot of times, you know it, I said, I feel confidence because I feel like that this is where I come to get better.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, he says, I wish everybody was that way. Everybody comes through that door thinks I'm a miracle worker and I can lay my hands on them and they'll go away healed. And they said, you don't do your time, unfortunately. You don't heal as good as you should have.
Yep.
And so, every time I go to therapy, I always feel like there's somebody there. And I do. When I get a chance, I'll say, it's going to get better. Just hang in there. Don't give up. And I don't have to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
but I feel that need because uh, therapists, they're doing the right thing, but
Yep.
they need somebody else to tell them that besides the person that they think is getting that they're paying to tell them it's going to be all
Mhm.
right, and it doesn't matter if it is or not.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of people, we need that encouragement. We need that reassurance. We need that. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Especially when
that's
you're in the field dealing with a lot of different people. Oh, yes, we need that.
that's something we need more than anything else. But when I was teaching, I felt like the biggest thing with children then and today, and maybe even adults and college kids and high school kids, is if they don't have a strong belief system, if they don't have somebody to believe in, and you believe in God, but it's like the deal when I fell at church, you don't see God,
Mhm.
that you don't see that God's there, even though He is.
Yes,
Sometimes you
he is.
need something, and you don't ever, faith and belief is what's going to connect you, and so, I had a nephew that had a really serious cancer situation, and
Mhm.
he had been one of these young men that was kind of one of these new age thinkers, and he was having a little trouble with this whole God business,
Oh,
and much to his mother's chagrin. But as soon as I found out, I was texting and emailing him and telling him, man, because I'd had prostate cancer, and I knew, uh, and I told him, I said, this is a bad situation, but don't blame God, and two,
right.
know that you can get through this, but you gotta have faith, you
Yes.
gotta have belief,
Mm.
and because God will take care of you,
Yep.
and well, that was a very extreme situation. And I don't know what's going through his mind or what he saw. He may have saw God too. I hope so.
Mhm. I
Because he's
hope
got
so.
a whole lot different. attitude than before that.
Praise God.
And
Yes.
when COVID started out, and this is interesting. This is why I was working at the tribe, and but one of our coworkers died of COVID even before they had diagnosed it as a real
Yeah.
thing. But because she went in the hospital for a cancer surgery, and then she just didn't get better, and she kept getting worse, and she coded 2 or 3 times, and but while I didn't ever get a chance to see her, she sent a message with one of her relatives because I shared. Well, most of them had read the book. I gave it to them all for Christmas present,
Yeah.
and she says, "You tell Calvin that I saw God, and if it hadn't have been for that, he wouldn't have brought me back twice." But he said after the third time, I figured, hey, I saw the pearly gates, and I shouldn't have to wait any longer.
Oh,
So I
wow.
felt like I'd done her some good, and I'd helped her cross over, and uh,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. When people are family members, or are headed there, and they're at the end of their earthly life, and everybody gets so sad, and I think, and I put this in something. I'm not sure whether it was a writing or a podcast or what it was, but when people die, that should be the most celebrated moment of their existence. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not going to get any better than that. If they're one
Yeah.
of God's, it isn't going to get any better. And yet, we tend to not look at it that way,
Yeah.
especially if they've suffered. You got to say, I loved you for a long, long time. You did all you could do, but my dad's, I did his eulogy, and I said, he tried hard, but he just got a better offer.
See?
God,
Yep.
God told him, I'm here. You've earned it. Come on down. And
Come
I think
on
that's the
down.
way it is with a lot of people, especially
Yep.
the ones that hold on, the ones that serve the Lord and a long, long time. Uh, and then they, and we just learned to depend on them, and we just can't see
Yep.
how we're going to do without them. But look, they're
Yeah, we get a
80,
little
90 years
selfish.
old. You know, give them a break.
Yeah,
They've earned it. Be
they
happy
earned it.
for them. Wipe your,
Truly.
be sad, but wipe your tears and say when their next birthday comes around, I bet you had one heck of a year.
Yep. Yep. My dad passed in 2022, so every year now I do a big this big family party in the park on Father's Day because every man that I've known, they always say we don't do nothing for Father's Day. We always do something for Mother's Day. So I've done the last 2 years, and this will be the next one, the second one, but a big family day in the park because my dad was a big family guy. He liked to have everybody over, cook for everybody, cook all in the park, and give away food. And he just liked to have a good time. So that's my tribute to my dad. Every year, Father's Day, I'm going to honor my father. And that's what I'm going to do until I
That
pass.
sounds like a great plan.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming by. I enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed listening to your story. Tell the people where they can connect with you, and if you have anything coming up that you want to let them know, any projects or anything like that, where to get the book.
You can get the book on Amazon, um, and they have the best price too. Barnes and Noble online, Target online, Walmart online. You can get them just about anywhere, but Amazon, get the best service. And if you've got Amazon Prime, you don't have to pay any shipping, so that's a good
Mhm.
thing. The book
Yeah.
is also available in audiobook, if that would be something you'd be interested in, and it's also available in on your readers, your
Yeah. Kindle.
like an ebook.
Yeah.
Uh, for information, it's easy. You just go to calvincassady.com, and that's my webpage, and it's got a lot of interesting. In fact, they collect as many of these videos or podcasts as they can to put them on that website so that people can get a taste of what's going on. And I've been doing this for several years now, so that's quite a collection of videos. Plus, I've done videos with lots of spiritual leaders. Trying to think, Al Cole. That was my very most favorite interview. We really got things going.
That's good.
But anyway, it's Calvin, Calvin, Cassady, Cassady.com. And that'll take you right to my updated webpage. I'm going to say this because if I say it, maybe I'll do it. I've got a new project in the works, and it's just simply a matter of getting it all together. I mean, I've got a lot, but basically what I'm doing is going through the podcast, the podcast I did during the pandemic, and a lot of things. I write a lot, a lot of things that I've written, and just do another collection of stuff, and call it Thank God, because that's what I want to do. I want to thank God for everything that He's allowed me to do, that He's made it possible for me to do. Some more stories like the one about the fall, because I'm just full of stories. Let's put it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be anything, that you have to think real hard about. I want it to be something that hits you right in the face, and say, and this is all yours, just for the asking.
Yep. Yeah. I like that. I want to thank you again. Thank you. It was such a pleasure having you. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait for this one to come out.
Well, shoot me a line or shoot somebody a line and tell me when it's going to happen, because I will put it on my Facebook page and with a link, because it's a good one. I've enjoyed it too.
Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on the Who God Says podcast with your host and Kingdom Ambassador, Ty-Shaun-Dra. Go to whogodsays.com to join the mailing list for episode premieres, upcoming guests, and more. Send in your questions to be a part of the show at whogodsays@gmail.com. And don't forget, join the Kingdom Fanatic community. Until next time, be blessed and also be a blessing.